The Protection Powers warriors figured out how to prevent the occupiers from progressing toward the path of the city of Selidovo, yet the actual attacks have not halted. This was expressed in a discourse to Liganet by Vitaly Milovidov, an official of the Public Gatekeeper Functional Detachment, Karadag. As per him, over 7 days have passed since the Karadag contenders halted the Russian advance in the Selidovsky region. The Russians have become more mindful and are no longer moving so straightforwardly, since Ukrainian cannons and FPV drones are effectively working here. Presently the public gatekeeper is attempting to get the intruders far from the infantry lines, diminishing the quantity of close battles. In any case, the Russians are as yet raging nearly to the last. To say that they got hit in the teeth somewhere and moved back, they have no such practice by any stretch of the imagination. For instance, there is an anti-tank ditch close to the Kotlyarevskaya mine near Selidovo. It is already filled with cadavers, and they are moving through them, walking in a steady stream. A horrible picture, the official said. Likewise characteristic is the absence of military gear among the Russians toward this path. Its use is kept in isolated cases, but the Russian Federation is beginning to utilize more guided air bombs and does not forget to hit with high-accuracy weapons at Ukrainian positions that they still cannot break through. As per the official, recently, the Russians have become more careful and are less inclined to form large groups for attacks. Milovidov doesn't believe that the enemy has run out of fighters. The occupiers have essentially taken a break to find more effective tactics. Recently, Russia sent significant reserves of mechanized infantry adding up to a regiment, as well as up to 2 batteries of 155 mm cannons and 122 mm rocket artillery, including M777A2 and FH-70 howitzers along with the RM-70 Vampire MLRS in the Selidovo area. After being supported by cannon fire and FPV drones, a few tactical attack company units of the military of Ukraine completed a counteroffensive launched from the strongholds in the southern quarter of Selidovo towards the eastern area of the city, forcing units of the central group of troops to retreat toward the northeastern edges of Selidovo in the area of Fire Station No. 63. Evidently, preparations for another offensive by Russian army units in the central regions of Selidovo are now underway. In the small town of Koronivo, less than 20 kilometers from the Ukrainian border, Russian soldiers have been found on video stealing from a children's clothing store named Kapitosha. The recording, posted by Michael Naki from the store's surveillance cameras, shows a uniformed Russian officer taking money from the store's register, and this is our Russian army, our defenders, a female voice off-camera comments on the video, captured on August 12. A local resident, who chose to remain anonymous, confirmed the burglary during a conversation with Astra, saying, "The soldiers have broken into practically all the shops. The individual's family business also suffered losses due to the actions of the Russian soldiers, though the specific items taken remain unknown." This episode follows a series of earlier August videos circulating online, showing Russian soldiers looting a Wildberries warehouse and a cell phone store in the border region of Kursk. The Russian military, frustrated by residents in Kursk and Belgorod oblasts, has stopped hiding its looting activities, focusing more on theft than defense. The Russian military is upset because locals in Kursk and Belgorod won't house them, lend them transportation, or accept inflated prices at stores. One shocked soldier complained online, accusing residents of blocking their efforts by refusing to sell them water or rent them apartments, demanding they treat soldiers like their own children and provide for them. Meanwhile, Russian servicemen have posted videos on social media showing themselves looting homes and taking vehicles in the very regions they are supposed to protect. Residents of Kursk also report that soldiers are uninterested in their own possessions, including clothes and shoes.
The war in Ukraine has reached a critical point. There's a lot going on all fronts. First, you may have heard about Kursk. That's Russian territory that Ukrainian forces invaded in a shock offensive on August 6. This is the first time since World War II that Russian territory has been occupied by a foreign force. The Kursk invasion grabbed headlines and cheered Ukrainians at home, but has so far failed to achieve what Kiev was expecting from Moscow. The Ukrainian government was trying to get Putin to move troops away from the eastern front line to Kursk. It was all a bluff, and Putin didn't fall for it. That's because Ukrainian troops and civilians in the east are desperate. The Donetsk front could be about to burst open, as Ukrainians are under immense pressure, outnumbered by Russians whose generals don't spare their soldiers in massive assaults that are known as meat marches. The main city under threat is Pokrovsk and the industrial urban area around it. Russian troops are less than 10 kilometers east of it. Ukrainian civilians are furious, and not just at Moscow but at Kiev too. They say that all those troops their President Zelensky sent to his headline-grabbing Kursk incursion, they should have been sent to Donetsk to stop the front line from collapsing. And speaking of Zelensky, he just fired ministers and hired a new cabinet amid allegations of incompetence and corruption. According to him, his government needs new energy. At the same time, Zelensky wants new weapons too. Specifically, he wants the US to give him permission to use its weapons to strike targets deep inside Russia, such as military airports or plants that work in shifts to churn out new missiles and drones. The US began providing Ukraine with long-range ballistic missiles earlier this year, but with certain rules attached. The missiles can't actually be used to strike inside Russia. They can only be used to target Russian troops who have invaded sovereign Ukrainian territory. We may hear people cheering on Ukraine's Kursk offensive, but Russian ground advances in the east and attacks from the air are posing a serious threat.